Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 51st episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this episode, I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
and John.
And we're glad to have you with us. On this show, we're going to be doing a deep dive on a couple more units that you may or may not be seeing on the table this edition. A couple of these were a staple last edition, but that's kind of gotten shaken up. We've got a lot of thoughts to put into words at some point, but as always, before we get to that, we want to make sure we go over the news of the week, and even more before that, let's talk hobby progress. Gentlemen?
I'll start it off this week. My hobby progress was continue to work on details on Imperial Fist. I have all of the base metallics done on all of them, which was a lot. So now they need to be highlighted, which is like a shot to the knee. So instead, I went a total opposite direction and painted green on all of the laurels that's on everything. And that took me, that alone was a night by itself. God, I'm starting to hate this army. Why am I doing a completely elite force of people with a lot of details? I must hate myself. Duncan, do you hate yourself?
No, not right now.
Outstanding. What have you been up to, man?
Well, I paused the Blood Angels so I could do the video for how I paint the Sons of Horus green. I assembled the Inducti, got their chain axes and bolt pistols put on. Thank you, Jamie, for that. I got the green all done. That took me, that and figuring out how to get everything to record properly, took me several hours the other night, figuring out how to then chop everything via video and put a voiceover on it so that it wasn't drowned out by my compressor. Took me a while. Getting that uploaded and then sent over to Jack for final cut and editing took longer. Since then, I've put some black on their shoulder pads because all my Sons of Horus have black on their shoulder pads, and these being Inducti, they're not going to be any different. They're not going to have some of the special fun stuff for them, but they'll look like the rest of the army for the most part. I did do a little bit of work on the Blood Angels. I did a little bit more of the weathering. Still not quite happy with them. I figure once I finish this first squad entirely, I'll finally be like, okay, this is what I'm going to shoot for all of the army, and then I'll be satisfied with that, and I can go forward from there. But getting to that point is what takes some time. Other than that, today and this weekend, I did no hobby whatsoever, because somehow, and I don't know how, the cats that we have here have decided to somehow become infested with fleas. And so I decided it would be a good idea not to have fleas in the house. So we flea bombed the house. And I have given 2 cats a bath with flea treatment. And let me tell you, if you've never done it, giving a cat a bath really makes you question if you want to live. My arms are covered in cat scratches, and yeah, that was not fun at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But that's not really a hobby. It's just, life. Jacob, hobby stuff. What have you done?
This week I've been working a lot on editing podcasts. I've done a little bit of Battletech hobby, but otherwise I have been on call, and been trying to focus on, knuckling down in advance of Gen Con this week. Looking forward to that, but, not too much to report otherwise. John, you want to round us out?
Oh yeah, I decided to go last this time because I have a bit of a boatload of stuff to do. Sadly, work has been a little crazy again, so the only things I managed to get done this week was finish highlighting the bare metal, the base metal, and the bronze on all of the full-size knights. And then for the armigers, I got their feet drilled for bases so that I could just set them on the bases and they'd quit falling over during games. And then I started doing that to the basic or to the bigger knights, but realized that they can kind of stand up on their own, so I really didn't do but a couple of them. And that was because I was able to go and get some gaming in with Lucas and the guys, like I've been talking about the last few episodes. We had a small Pheonix event. One of my friends came out from retirement, Joel. He's been gaming with me for almost 15 years now. He started back when I was running the game store here in Plano, and now he's been hanging out with me doing a bunch of other non-heresy stuff. But I finally got him back into Mechanicum, and then when he didn't like the way his Mechanicum was going, he started buying word bearers, and he got a word bearers force put together and was able to play the other day, and brought his nephew along, and his nephew's kind of starting to dip his feet into as well. So trying to keep the hobby going through that way. Lucas's event was really interestingly run. You know, a lot of the times we run hobby events where it's more important, you know, just kind of line up, loyalists on one side, traders on the other side, and then you just kind of play who you want to play throughout the day. We had 2 games today or yesterday, and Lucas used a method that's kind of becoming starting to catch on here at a few other events I've heard of as well. Is he took the new Siege of Cathonia missions, all their scoring parts, and then put those as secondary objectives to the missions, but kept some of the primary objectives from the first edition missions. So the first game I played, primary objectives was table quarters, even though deployments were the triangles, you know, where the quote unquote attacker gets a big triangle, and then the defender gets 12 inches away from that, and then kind of fills in the what's left of the outside of that. So the primary on that one was table quarters. The secondary on that was price of failure, where you get extra victory points for killing Lords of War. And considering I took knights, Joel was able to beat me on that. And then there was also Slay the Warlord points and killing the most expensive unit points. The second game, I played a Thousand Suns player who's been to a bunch of our local events. Blanking on the name right now. But he brought a lot of automata and a knight of his own, the one with the lightning cannon. And so we had, I want to think, 30 or 35 explosions throughout the whole game, with a couple of chain reactions and a couple of 3-tier chain reactions that went through blowing up our armies left and right. On that one, primary objectives were 4 objectives that we put on the table. Secondary objectives were you roll 2 dice on a d6 chart, you tell your opponent what you rolled, and then you pick one secretly to tell them what your secret objective is. And there were things like kill infantry units, kill characters, capture more victory points than the opponent, have scoring units in the opponent's victory or in the opponent's deployment zone, and then have scoring units outside of your deployment zone. And so it's kind of interesting to kind of roll those off and then figure out which ones you want to do at the time. All in all, it was a great fun event. We had people come down from Oklahoma City again. Martin from the Fires of Betrayal podcast came down. He'll probably go over a bit more in depth on what his games were like in his podcast. And then Michael from Warzone Houston came up. A couple of his friends are in the area, so they're starting to try to get into Heresy more. And so they came over to our event. And hopefully everybody said that they're looking forward to, in 2 weeks' time, the Texas Open, which is going to be a 3-day event. ZM, Apocalypse. Those are not 2 separate things. That's ZM Apocalypse is one big, long ZM game that we play. And then we'll probably also have some minor ZM games, and we've got some 3K games as well over the 3 days. So that's what I'm trying to get a decent-sized night force done for, so I can at least play in those events. Obviously, the one thing that's kind of hurting me being all nights is the fact that I don't have any infantry to pick up the famous points of interest system that's going on. And so I just try to keep people off of them so that way they don't get any bonus points. But during the podcast today, I'm working on applying some of the highlights to the basing materials for the large night bases. And then hopefully I can get all that done up. And then start on armor this week for Texas Open. And hopefully work won't be too crazy so I can get all the armor. I'd like to get the armor at least decaled, maybe not fully weathered, but at least decaled and applied to the knights for next weekend, or weekend after next. That is everything I did, gentlemen. I think it's time to bust into what news we had this week.
Yeah, who wants to pick that up and run with it? I think we've got both a Heresy Thursday this week, as well as some new items up for pre-order.
The Plastic Knight looks neat. That's all I got.
Yeah, that was, it's the Lancer this week, yeah?
Yeah, it's...
Next week.
It looks good,
Yeah, it's the preview video that came out today. They dropped Knights. There's a really fancy Cadia book, and then there's some other stuff that's coming out, like Warcry, Skaven. But finally getting a Lancer in plastic is nice, as I'm basically shelving the rest of the ones I got. I'm going to be kind of curious on price. That's kind of one of the things that's priced a lot of people out of knights in general as a full list is the fact that armigers are $90 for two and nearly impossible to find in the U.S. And then you have to take at least two armigers for every knight that you take. And then we've still got to wait for the fact that the Lancer. I learned again in my games that the Lancer is probably the worst model that can be usually taken in 30k, just because its lance is just so few attacks. It's only strength 10 AP2 in the combat. It doesn't have brutal or anything really. It's just I5. So it's really kind of one of the weaker Cerastus chassis as far as that goes. But opening up access to the other Cerastus Knights will be interesting.
Yeah, do any of the Cerastus chassis get any amount of brutal in close combat?
There's no brutal in the Mechanicum book.
Yeah, definitely an interesting thing there.
The best one that I've seen people talk about is I think it's the Castigator, the one with the minigun, the Vulcan Mega Bolter, and the sword, because the sword has Defilgrate and can swap out its base attacks for an attack on everything it's in base-to-base contact with. And its Defilgrate is AP2, if I remember correctly. So it's good at clearing Marines away, which is kind of the thing that ties down other knights, but my Lancer really had problems just with a base Leviathan. The base Leviathan charged the Lancer, and the Lancer just sat there for 4 turns.
Yeah, I keep meaning to run the one with the Mega Bolter in the game. I just don't play enough to justify a one-off game like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't really disagree. We've also had a preview of the Imperialis terrain that's coming out for that. They've got city road tiles, and those are 12 by 12s. 2 straight roads, 2 T junctions, 2 crossroads, letting you build your own kind of roadway, I guess. And of course, with them being 12 by 12s, you're looking at a very, very small frame on that, or a small table on that. But they've also got a whole bunch of scatter terrain and buildings and everything. Obviously, it's not 30k sized, but some of it could be useful. Some of it could be fun for scatter terrain for 30k tables. I know we're not really all that big into Legion Imperialis or Epic, but I figured it's best to mention because there is some crossover on that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I always enjoy more terrain. And one of the tables that I'm working on next has been kind of a dream table of mine, is a big bridge as a full 6x4 table. And on top of to break line of sight, because obviously if it's just end-to-end bridge, it's going to be boring to shoot across. I want to build like a big Arc de Triomphe that kind of fell down and is blocking line of sight across the whole thing. And on top of that, I want to have like a park that's dedicated to the heroes of the Imperium Crusade. And to that end, Lucas this week 3D printed me some Marine busts in Mark III armor that I can paint up in different metals and patinas, and I can attach those to C-clamps, so that way I can clamp the board down if it starts going like across tables or use as a joiner board. But getting back to terrain, I want to have like on top of there a kind of a tiny scale war on top, so that way you can say like, this is Horus's side, this is the Emperor's side, and kind of like you see at museums, just what it would be like to fight through that.
Yeah, I'm always a fan of different terrain styles and types on tables, anything that make our battlefields look better, and not just like a block here and a block there and then a small wedge.
I was kind of weird. It's weird that they only have the road tiles. There's not like a city square tile or anything like that.
So these are only the first batch, I think. I think they're probably going to do at least 2 more. One is, like I said, this is just the roads. I'm guessing they're probably going to do one that's like city, and then maybe one that's like suburb. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, if they do like a blank city, it'd be really cool, because I mean, obviously you don't want everything to constantly just be roads.
Yeah, but also right now it's only, if you were to combine it all, it could only do a 2x3. So hopefully they'll do enough to fill a hole up 4x6.
Yeah, but there's
with not just the same tiles being duplicated.
There's nothing wrong with buying multiple tiles.
No, nothing at all.
I mean, I've got 10 sets of Necromunda tiles waiting for me to build a ZM board.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see kind of what direction they go with all this stuff they're putting out for it, because, hey, terrain's terrain. We can find a way to make some of it work in our actual 30k hobby.
Yep. And to that end, a lot of the terrain looks like it's supplementing the AT stuff that already exists.
Yep.
And adding in parts for getting infantry to stand up on the new 25 millimeter rounds. And they
Yeah.
did an article on infantry showing off how the new infantry compares to old infantry. So they showed the ogres, the Sholorox ogres against the old, just generic ogres, where they're all doing the YMCA pose.
Yeah.
And then they did a tank one, and it shows off a completely new design Baneblade.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of freaked out a bit by that. It's definitely different, but the differences are kind of subtle in a way.
Yeah, the sponsons are, instead of being twin link pointing one direction, it's one gun pointing forward, one gun pointing back.
Yep.
The front is a little harder angled. The vision slits are,
Also angled.
yeah, they're more they're more square instead of being kind of chapel like the old one was.
And the front demolisher cannon nose gun is kind of different as well.
Yeah, it looks a lot like the Dracosan mount.
Yep.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is that tank looks a lot more like a Dracosan than it does a normal Baneblade. It's very solar oxy than it is like normal IG.
I definitely like it, and maybe we're going to get a new Baneblade for 30K based on this. I think that'd be cool, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
It would be cool to see the Marines redesigned around that, because I think that the current Marine super heavy half resin, half plastic kits were designed before they went super CAD heavy. So it wouldn't surprise me if those molds aren't super easy to convert to using other tanks.
Yeah, it's just kind of a different thing. I'm not. I definitely don't dislike the new look that they've put to it. It just seems kind of odd that they've put it out here in this way, but haven't actually released that for mainline Heresy yet. But they've also teased us with a picture of the new what is it, third Mark 6 jump infantry. We haven't got that yet, so things are different.
And then there was a picture of a sprue that came out in that article as well, where you can see the special weapon infantry are two part, pardon, and the bolter infantry are one part. And the sprues only connect at the feet, which I think is a great fix over some of the old epic infantry was really spindly, and the sprue attached at the head and the feet. So if you clipped it with some old clippers, you'd end up busting a bunch of Marines. I can't tell you how many Mark 6 Marines that were monopose that I ripped in half because I had crappy old clippers when I first started in the hobby.
I hear you on that one, brother. I really do. I also kind of like that the new stuff for Legion Imperialis is they're bigger. They're noticeably larger than the previous stuff. So people who have got older stuff, yeah, you can use it, but it's going to look very, very different size-wise. And people who've been printing in that same size and scale, you might want to up your scale a little bit there, guys, because not the same.
All I can tell you is that I will not be able to tell the two apart because I'm half blind.
That's fair.
Well, all right. Do we have more to say about that, or is now the time to tear into our deep dive for the episode?
I think before we tear into our deep dive, let me just high five everybody for being here. That's all I got.
That's right. We have had Jamie join us. Pretty excited.
Sorry I was
for
late.
That. Hey, you're all right, man. And similarly, before we dug into our deep dive, we wanted to take a moment to remind all of our listeners that we are doing a giveaway to celebrate 50 episodes of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. We've got a Age of Darkness box set and some fancy bases for it. The fancy bases, I believe, were provided by Elric's Hobbies, and the Age of Darkness was, if I recall, was that from Flying Pheonix?
Flying Pheonix up in Wisconsin, yes.
Absolutely. If you missed it in the last episode, we will be running this promotion up until episode 53. During episode 53, we will do our drawing. All you have to do is live in the continental United States and leave a comment on either our giveaway channel here on Discord, or otherwise comment in the comments for the episode on, I believe we're running it on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, if I'm correct. So you can get up to 4 entries total. You cannot re-enter across multiple episodes. So if you dropped a comment on our last show, fear not, you're already entered, and you don't have to re-up for this episode. And if you live in the continental United States during episode 53, we'll end up dropping you a line and figure out how we can get that box sent off to you. We're very honored to be able to provide this promotion, and similarly, we're honored to have all you listeners continuing to tune in. With that said and out of the way, we decided to take this show to get back into some of our units you may or may not see deep dive series. Previously, we had touched on Seekers and Destroyers, as well as the Moritat, and if I believe correctly, the Vigilator is part of that. This episode, we've decided to kick off with vets and then run through the 3 different Terminator choices. I know, at least in my case, vets were a staple for me last edition.
Yes,
now that's when we
very
had
much so.
vet skills that were kind of akin to 4th edition 40k, where you could pick them to do some different things. You could pick like Scout or Weapon Master to give them the Weapon Skill 5 kick, as well as the one that I felt like I took most often, which was Machine Killers. You got +1 strength on all your anti-vehicle attacks. But that was really cool because that was something you got to pick at the start of the game. And so if you came across somebody who had no or next to no tanks in his list, you could just as easily just be like, well, I'm not going to need this Machine Killer squad, but I think these guys are probably going to earn their keep if they end up Weapon Master. Regardless, that's neither here nor there. The Vet Squad is still to this day one of the most... you can spend about as many points on them as you choose to. Keep in mind, outside of attaching a apothecary, you'll never make them more durable, but you can put as many bits and bobs on the Swiss Army knife that is a Vet Squad as you so choose.
As someone who likes to build all the options, vets always kind of break my brain. I'm not gonna lie. I built the Combi Melta squad, and then I decided I was going to try to build a squad of every combi, insert other type of weapon. And by the time I'd finished getting all the bits, we left 1.0 and went to 2.0, and so now I really only have the 2 painted Combi Melta and Combi Plasma squads, but I've got the bits for all the other ones. Even back in 1.0, the only real ones that we saw were a lot of Combi Plasma, a lot of Combi Melta, and the Machine Killer was the most popular. Outside of that, did you guys really see anybody taking... I know we got a big quote-unquote buff when the Volkite and Combi Grenade got multiple use. Everyone was really cool about, oh yeah, finally these might be worth taking, but apart from me buying them, I never saw anyone actually run the dang things. Apart from maybe, I guess, Dark Angels with their...
Dark Angel players love them.
Before the FAQ, I saw more than a few people who used sniper vets with flamers or combi flamers to deal with especially Phosphex quad mortars, but those kind of got FAQ'd both at the same time, which tamped that down significantly. Past that, our buddy Nick really loved to run vets, sometimes with plasma, sometimes with melta, almost always with at least a couple power weapons, because for both his Night Lords and his Blood Angels, he felt like he could very easily benefit from pivoting onto Weapon Master anytime he didn't need the Machine Killer, or vice versa. Most of the time he actually defaulted to Weapon Master, and then he would only pick up Machine Killer if he was like, there's a high priority target over there like a Knight or a Lord of War, and I've really got to be able to hammer that down.
I've personally used a lot of the Weapon Master vets with my World Eaters. Multiple chain or power axes, and then everybody having a combi plasma or plasma, and then chain axes everywhere, stuffing them in a termite and yanking them out of nowhere in the middle of turn 1 when the opponent's got all their stuff kind of sitting there waiting to be shot and eventually charged. Nobody likes, Weapon Skill 5 chain axes right in the back.
And that was a big boon to them, was that regardless of if you took Weapon Master or not, they were 2 attacks base. They came dual armed by default. So you were 3 attacks if you got charged, 4 attacks if you got to charge the other guy. You could put out a mess of attacks even if you didn't have actual close combat rules to like bail you out or back you up. And the fact that you could take, as you still can, a power weapon on any number of models you chose, you could really get some legs there. They were one of the few squads in the game who could take melta-bombs on every model last edition, and obviously the value has changed a little bit on that. So to start like running the data sheet on these guys, 115 points gets you 5 models. They are fixed weapon skill 5 all the time now. They are 2 wounds base all the time. They are 2 attacks base, 3 attacks on the sergeant. They are lead 8 across the board now, so they do still have that like veteran sergeant stat line at minimum. Their power armor, bolter, bolt pistol, fragging crack grenades. They are not dual armed native, so that's a bit of a ding there. As far as unit type, there's nothing special here. Special rules, they will get your Legions Astartes rules. They are relentless now, and they're chosen warriors, so any number of models can issue any of their number may issue or accept challenges. They can buy rhinos, they can buy drop pods, they can buy termites as dedicated. So if you are not playing deep strike assault, this is a way to get drop pods in your list. But this is kind of it. Similarly, this does let you pull termites out of your fast attack choice and get those available. The biggest thing that I feel like they are missing here, and this is also going to come up as part of the Terminator discussion, to say nothing of me feeling disappointed that we lost their vet skills, where you can make some choices after you show up to the table. The other big thing that I felt that we lost with these guys was the fact that they're not scoring. Your Terminators aren't scoring. These guys aren't scoring. I brought it up as part of the Seekers discussion. When those guys lost scoring, that to me was a big blow to list diversity and list construction. And there's certainly something to be said for the deliberate choice to really make Tactical Marines much more core to list construction or army composition, but I would be more inclined to buy that argument or to align with that argument if not for the fact that some legions do still get line changes in their rights of war, and I don't feel like that benefit has necessarily been evenly assigned. But neither here nor... Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, with some of the changes to power weapons as well, like they can't take a Thunderhammer, whereas before the utility of a hidden power fist was just so great that it was worth just throwing 1 or 2 in there along with a couple of different types of power weapons. Now that Thunderhammers have kind of become the end-all, be-all, only way of really surviving a Dreadnought encounter, which some of the units we're going to get to later can actually have access to, I think that they're hurting there too.
Extra dudes show up at 18 points a model. Up to 1 model may take 1 of each of the following: Nuncio Vox, Vexilla, Augury Scanner. Anybody who keeps their bolter can take a bayonet or a chain bayonet. All of these options are the same rate that tactical squads pay for them. You can get the lesser combis at 5 points a model. So these get really interesting because now you can shoot both halves of the combi. And especially for the fact that you are relentless now. If you saw a combi out there that you were like, I really... Now, admittedly, that's going to be more appropriate on like the greater combi, where you could double tap the plasma and still charge your target afterwards. But that's an option here. You can pick up shotguns at 2 points a model. So I didn't realize these could take shotguns on everybody. That's a more interesting choice. I don't know if it's good, but it's more interesting to see Imperial Fists getting their, rending shotgun slug in the Cathonia book like they got. Nemesis bolters at 10 points a model. These look really appealing on paper, but without these guys having the ability to score, I will almost always feel like Recon Marines are a better platform for Nemesis weapons. Your range is so enormous that you shouldn't necessarily need the Relentless to, like, scoot up closer and be able to fire. Obviously, there's going to be some exceptions made for Pride of the Legion, or if you have the ability to give your vets line. But I feel like at 10 points a model, which is almost up there with the greater combis to a certain extent, by the time you're spending almost as much as what your platform cost you up front for the gun in question, it starts to raise some eyebrows from me. Further, any model in the unit may take chainswords at 2 points a model, heavy chainswords, charnable weapons, lightning claws, or power weapons at 5 points a model. If you thought you were going to take a chain bayonet and you didn't read far enough down to get to chainswords, having run the math on just tactical marines, the bayonet, chain bayonet, and chainsword are all approximately priced where they should be, just based on proficiency in close combat. So the fact that you can spend the same number of points on a chain bayonet as what you would spend on a chainsword is really, really crazy here. +1 attack in close combat gives you shred, a lot of mileage there. And of course, the fact that you then look at it and you are a scant 3 points a model more to move that chainsword to a full-blown power weapon. I don't know that I would tell you to go nuts and take power weapons on everybody. As we'll see, they do have some options for, like, real guns on 1 out of every 5 models. I tend to put real power weapons either on those models themselves, or if you feel like there's a lot of sniper weaponry in your area, putting it on 1 in 5 models plus the sergeant means that you get 5 expendable grunts who you can bite return fire or overwatch on, and then you have 5 models, sergeant, 2 power weapons, 2 guns, that you really are hoping that those models stick around. You can replace bolt pistols for Volkite Serpentas at 5 points or hand flamers at 2 points. Hand flamers gets really, really funny if you're a Salamanders player, but otherwise I don't know that the Volkite Serpenta is worth 5 points. Any model in the unit can swap bolter and bolt pistol for 2 lightning claws. So I'd have to go digging on Raven Guard and see if their Raven's Talons is character only, or if they can take Raven's Talons here. Lightning Claws got some of the same glow up that Power Swords got, but a little more so. So you do still get shred on them. They are still AP3 base. They do get the Rending 6 with Raven's Talons I mentioned for Raven Guard getting Rending 5. And now if you took a pair of those, you get +2 attacks. So when you've got your model who's 2 attacks base, 2 for dual paired, and then +1 for charge, you can generate 10 Lightning Claw attacks just off those 2 models. And while it's not going to be perfect in all cases, 10 attacks means you're, even without a chaplain or something else, if you're not charging another weapon skill 5 unit, you're getting close to 7 hits, which is going to be 1 rend and a not unreasonable chance at the second. So even if you're diving headfirst into single wound Astartes in Artificer armor, I don't know what that unit would be outside of like an apothecary or something, but or sergeants even, since you're chosen warriors, you can throw one of your lightning claws into the challenge and hope for the best. There's a lot that you can do there, and seeing 10 points a model, it's a little pricey, but individual power weapons or lightning claws being 5 points, seeing the pair come for the same cost, not bad. Further, for every 5 models in the unit, one can take a flamer at 2 points, melt-a-gun at 15 points, plasma gun at 10 points, graviton gun at 15 points, heavy flamer at 10 points, heavy bolter at 15 points, missile launcher at 15 points. Nick swears to this day by plasma guns on vets, especially now that they have Relentless. He feels like that unit, as you move around, even if you've got to take some like kind of desperate shots past 12 inches, the ability to get some autocannon quality shots at that kind of a range is not to be overlooked. Ultimately, though, I find it very hard to not commit to the melt-a-gun on these guys.
That's what I have on all mine.
Yeah.
I had three squads that I had converted over from 1.0, and I went from the heavy bolters with the suspensor webs to everything with them all having combi meltas on them.
Yeah, I do kind of lament that Alpha Legion and Dark Angels kind of lost the uniqueness there.
Yeah.
But obviously the trade-off is that overall the squad has a little more focused identity, and we referenced that a little bit on like the White Scars episode, where sometimes a more focused identity can keep players from, if they don't know what they're doing, going down bad roads to units that are either going to be overpointed or under effective or both, and having a negative play experience there. So some amount of guardrails are probably not the worst. To John's point, though, the veteran sergeant is now the only one who can take a Power Fist or Thunderhammer. Power Fist at 20 points, Thunderhammer at 25. I'm still of the mind, and Ryan preached this for the longest time on RFI. He said, by the time you're buying a tank, especially if that tank is a Land Raider or a Spartan especially, if that thing has to depend on something else, pay the points to make that thing happen. Or sort of the idea of being like pot committed. So if you're already willing to pony up the 20 points for a Power Fist, the extra 5 points for a Thunderhammer is a relatively small upcharge for what the Thunderhammer ends up offering you. I don't know if it's perfect. I don't know if it's the right choice for everybody, but
the issue is it's not hidden like it used to be. It's now on the character only, so it's challengeable.
Well, so the unit is Chosen Warriors, so you can have other dudes step up and bite that challenge. Likewise, you could take your Sergeant and you could make him kind of a mini Praetor or mini Chaplain. You could give him a Thunderhammer and a Lightning Claw, and really kit him out for bear there if you know that he's going into close combat to make a mess.
Yeah.
I think I'm building my vets different than most everybody else is, apparently.
Are you going cheap, just chainswords and angry?
No. I'm actually going all combi weapons on every single vet except for two. And the two I'm going different weapons on are the heavy weapons. They're getting missile launchers.
Interesting. So you're going full-fledged missile launchers instead of melt-a-guns.
I'm going 2 missile launchers, and then I'm going combi grenade launchers.
See, I've toyed with the grenade launchers for the Dark Angels, but
they're pinning.
Yeah.
I mean,
is it what, Assault 4 pinning?
No.
Strength 4
no.
AP dash?
Hang on a second, I'll tell you exactly what it is.
What's the frag shell this time?
Give me a moment. I have to pull Battlescribe back up, but frag shell, Assault 1 pinning, Strength 3, AP 6, blast.
Oh, it's a lot of pinning. That's a lot of small blasts to resolve. You might be a bad person. I say this as somebody who, like, I've played Grave Wardens and I've played Siege Tyrants, and I don't know if I'm ever willing to resolve that many small blasts again as long as I live.
Now I'm gonna preface this with I'm also putting a Thunderhammer on my Sergeant. And for my Sons of Horus, every single one of them is getting a Carsoran Power Tabar. So I'm not getting the bonus attacks and everything. But if you're already engaged or someone else has already declared a charge on you, every single one of my attacks is AP3 in close combat. And I can breach on a 4+. So if you're pinned already, you're not going to like this combat at all. Especially if I'm using them in ZM. Because, oh look, Blast just got even worse.
Very true. Other things that can happen here, your Vet Sergeant can buy Artificer Armor, can buy Plasma Pistol. The Sergeant can buy Melt-A-Bombs. Wow, so they actually stripped the ability for the whole unit to buy Melt-A-Bombs. Hot take, alert. If you thought you were going to buy Melt-A-Bombs, just buy the Power Fist or the Thunderhammer. The only time you will wish that you had Melt-A-Bombs will be a Land Raider or a Spartan. And every other time, I'm pretty sure you will wish that you had a Thunderhammer instead. Or at least the Power Fist.
The vets are kind of squishy. They have the same kind of problem that a lot of the power armored 2-up wound guys have. Yeah, they got weapon skill 5. Yeah, they can get a basket of different toys to play with. But you're going to have to focus them on what you're wanting them to do, because they're not going to be the all-arounders able to do darn near anything this edition. They're good, don't get me wrong, but they feel kind of less capable, if that makes any sense.
Yes and no. So, on the one hand, their biggest buff that people will look at, because I think most people will see the change to fixed weapons 5 as at best a lateral shift. For sure, there are some armies which are desperately missing the fact that they could take machine killer vets. But that's neither here nor there. We've got the ability to at least consider that 2 wounds should be a pretty big boon. And while AP3 right now is pretty exotic, I feel like the only mass AP3 I still see are Siege Tyrants. It puts you in a position where vets are more expensive. I think, I haven't done the math to be exactly sure, but I think vets are more expensive than what they were last edition for a durability buff that most people will find highly suspect. Because most of the time, they're still just gonna get instant deathed by anything that was ignoring their armor anyway.
So, if you do a direct, obviously I play specific legions, so this, obviously everyone's mileage may vary. But if you do a straight across comparison between a vet squad and one of your quote unquote elite squads, again, just in power armor, for example, if you look at the Reaver squad, similarly armed guys don't exist, because you can't put bolters or combi bolters on everybody in a Reaver squad. Same with the World Eaters. You can't really do it there with the Rampagers. So, like I said, I think they have, while yes, they have a place, it's definitely not going to be the same kind of place as they used to be. And yeah, they definitely do look like they're more expensive from my experience for what they do compared to what they used to do. And they're typically a little bit more pricey than like a Rampager squad or a Reaver squad, especially when all kitted out.
I don't think you're wrong there, but I do think that these guys suffer as much or more from changes to transport damage as any other unit in the game. Because, as mentioned earlier, the only way to up these guys' durability is to buy them an apothecary, and while, congratulations, there's a seat for him in the Rhino now, if the Rhino gets blown out from under you, that apothecary's not worth anything, nor is the second wound.
No, I think that on most battlefields, these guys don't really shine. But I think where they really do shine very well is ZM.
Oh, no question. I think they're definitely viable in ZM. Or if you go the opposite direction and, let's say, attach a Vigilator to these guys, I don't know that I would ever put them into reserves. But even just scouting them up a little bit can sometimes be a big benefit to their durability. If you end up doing that, I would definitely caution against overspending on close combat weapons, because you are more likely to treat this unit the same way you did last edition if you bought them a Termite, or if you bought them an Anvilus, where they're going to have to show up, hope they make their points back, quote-unquote, immediately, and then they're going to die. This is probably not far removed, depending on your case or your situation, from certain pieces in chess, where you just have to be aware that this is valuable, but the real value comes from an offset trade.
No, I agree there. And I think one thing that we're also kind of missing is these guys are all relentless. So running around with that heavy weapon in that squad you got that missile. I mean, if you want it, throw it in there. Or the graviton gun. It's not going to hurt for them to have it because you're moving and firing full everything. It's not a suspensor web. It's a full up relentless. So
you're not wrong. I think that the graviton gun pushes you into a place that you don't want to be.
I agree.
Because
that's why I'm putting the missile launcher in there.
What is it, like an 18-inch range?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous.
And the grav gun's only super good against dreadnoughts, and it's okay against vehicles.
Yep, which
and
is why
most of the time,
missiles.
If you're trying to stay away, your better bet is going to be a missile launcher or a plasma gun. You could take the Nemesis bolt rifles and do that, but you just get where I'm looking at the plasma for the fact that up close and against things that aren't dreadnoughts, I feel like your value is going to be much higher on the plasma gun. So
I'm also making certain. I mean, even with my world leaders, they're all getting a chain axe, just because everybody in the world leaders needs a chain axe. But I feel the vets are in a strange place. I like them. I want to like them. I liked using them the last edition. I want to find a home for them in my lists in this edition, but I kind of find them to be, the way I'm looking at them, is kind of a one-trick pony. Yeah, they're good, but I want to find more utility to them, if that makes any sense. Because right now I'm not really seeing as much.
Super honest, I don't know that I can find a place for them in my lists anymore.
See, that's what I was going to say. With them being in elite and so many other good units being in elite, like, unfortunately, this is going to be the theme for everything we're covering tonight. Is yes, they have a use, but there's probably something else in the elites that
is much better.
Yeah,
I'll warn listeners. I can find more uses for vets than for any of the 3 Terminator types we're about to talk about.
Now, I will say this. I do find a use for them if I'm playing Pride of the Legion.
Right, because your first 2 squads are compulsory, and they'll gain line for the privilege.
Exactly, but realistically, unless I'm playing Pride, I'm really having a hard time putting these guys in, no matter how much I like them.
Can see a use for these in Zone Mortalis, like we've talked about.
I was going to say ZM.
I think Raven Guard helps these guys be playable because it'll give them Infiltrate Native and Shrouded 6 up. And while it's not perfect, it can do a lot if you've got Deliverers in a more shooting-focused role to kind of have a staggered line of vets up front, Deliverers behind, and trying to at least force a little bit of an issue with opponents where it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to shoot my vets? That's fine. My Deliverers are happy to keep shooting at you, and they were more expensive anyway. Oh, are you going to shoot my Deliverers? That's fine. My vets will end up running you over in close combat, because at least a couple of them have Raven's Talons, and especially in ZM, where you basically can't take Dark Furies. I think that Raven Guard players absolutely should consider Raven Talon vets, because of the ability to infiltrate them and pull some tricks off there.
Yeah, I'm not really disagreeing. It's just, like I said, I want to like vets. I want to use the vets.
Yeah, but that's the hang-up, is that, like, anything you think you want vets to do, unless you're a close combat focused army, Seekers are probably doing better at. And if you are a close combat focused army, I don't know if vets are good enough to get you across the finish line because of their lack of invulnerable save.
I mean, this is going to sound kind of silly, but last edition, I built vets for the Sons of Horus out of Reavers because Reavers were not, honestly,
not good.
Yeah. And I built vets for the World Eaters out of Rampagers because, again, Rampagers also were just not that good. Now I'm sitting here staring at them going, man, I don't want to break these guys apart and put other bits on there to make them Reavers and repaint them entirely or turn them into Rampagers again. But
well, I mean, the good news,
I just can't find a way to make them happy. To make
you
me
at least have
them.
like bits that you can use for stuff. I'm sitting here with Thousand Sons and Alpha Legion going, I don't know if I like these guys, and I don't know if I like the Legion-specific equivalent of them. Headhunters you can at least talk about, and you can do some different things with, but that's maybe a more apt comparison to Seekers than it is to vets.
Yeah, I think even a worse situation for Alpha, because Alpha, you're sitting there and you're making your elites even worse because you're typically stealing someone else's elite choice.
Yep.
to make it harder.
Yep. And I'm sorry. So with Alpha Legion, the comparison that you should be making is Ifrits. But I don't. Ifrits are lovely. I don't tend to talk about them too much because they're that whole core versus expanded problem. Do we have any parting words on vets before we start moving into our 3 Terminator types?
I like them. I just wish I could find a way to make them better.
Cheers to that. Our first Terminator type is the Cataphracti squad. Cataphracti for the longest time were kind of the default or the generic, the go-to Terminators, because last edition they were the same points as Tartaros, and you had a better invulnerable save. The things that you lost were the ability to run and sweeping advance, and those almost never mattered. Last edition, because you were either going to maul someone so badly that you didn't care about sweeping, and transports, including like Anvilus pattern drop pods, which the standard Terminators could take, they were so ubiquitous and so accessible that the drawback, the mobility cost that you paid with Cataphracti was so low. But this edition, that might be a little bit different. So we're 175 points for the first 5 guys with Cataphractes. They are movement 6. That's not slow enough to keep you on the wrong side of breakpoint, but as Ned indicated, conversely it does mean that when you look at Tartaros, where they do get that movement 7, and then a Legion trait that bumps you up to move 8, that is enough for a breakpoint. That's not bad. Weapons Ballistics 4. Weapons 4 is a travesty here. And that almost singly keeps me from ever running Terminators of any type. Strength Tough 4, no surprise. 2 wounds a model, lovely. I4 and 2 attacks. Lead 7 on the base guy. I really feel like Terminators got done dirty because they totally smeared the difference between vets and Terminators. Terminators are not inherently veterans anymore. They're just dudes who have earned the right to wear armor that effectively gives them +1 wound.
Yeah. So, Tactical Dreadnought armor, the original idea behind it was to have entire legions equipped with it as they were doing rollouts, and kind of do away with most power armor in certain spots for certain things.
Well, that was the same idea behind Volkite too.
Yeah, it was, and it didn't happen obviously because of whatever reason and the heresy. But it really feels like these guys have just taken a punch in the junk in this edition, because
there are definite units that really have kind of taken it on the chin compared to 1.0. There's like either, I don't know, somebody got touched in the wrong way too many times in 1.0.
Well, let's keep rolling through the data sheet here. They've got combi bolters to a man. They've got power weapons to a man. They get your Legions Astartes special rule. They are relentless. So Cataphracti are heavy. Terminator armor no longer grants you relentless, or at least not as a facet of the Terminator armor.
Yep, they are inexorable. They are bulky too. For dedicated transports, you no more than 5 model can take a Land Raider Proteus or a Dreadclaw. Units numbering 5 or more can select a Spartan as a dedicated transport, with all the point costs associated with that. Spartans, their own little basket case right now with the amount of points you pour into them. You can add up to 5 more for 30 points a model. You get the normal 10 points for a Vexilla, Scanner, Noxiovox, blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
1 to 5 models and units can exchange their combi bolters for like a Flamer, a Reaper autocannon, or a Plasma Blaster for 5, 15, or 10 points. Any thoughts on the 1-5 with those weapons?
I've never seen anybody take a Plasma Blaster ever, but I'm just throwing it out there. But I mean, I have seen Reaper autocannons, and I definitely have seen Flamers, but
the Flamer seems to be used as a deterrent to being charged, and the other gun see arguments about making sure that units are really good at doing one thing and not crap at doing 2 things.
Right.
Yeah. I think the only place I've actually seen anybody with the Plasma Blaster is when they've got like a dedicated small group of them that are dropping in out of a Dreadclaw, and all of them have a Kami Plasma.
Now, I will say I have seen. I take it back. I have seen a plasma blaster only in one case. ZM.
Yep, that's where I was going to say it. I've seen it in ZM. I really wish that this wasn't a 1 in 5 for like the Reaper autocannon. If the unit could take all 5 of them with the Reaper autocannon.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That would be
that'd be like very awesome.
Oh, that would hurt, especially if it was Iron Warriors.
Yeah,
Tars used to be able to take that, and that's the way I ran them all the time, was all the autocannons.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. Then you could add the big or small combi weapons or Volt Kite chargers for any unit in the group, any model in the group. Any model in the group may exchange its power weapon for like a Power Fist, Lightning Claw, Chain Fist, a Thunder Hammer at 15 points. So you're taking, let's see here, 175 points, adding a 15 points per model for a Thunder Hammer. That gets a little
pricey,
little up there.
A little up there.
Yeah, like you get. Like here, I'll finish it out. See here, any model can change out the Combi Bolter and Power Weapon for 2 Lightning Claws, and the Sergeant can take a Grenade Harness. Like, I want to like them because it's such a cool model. When of the models where I think Heresy, Cataphractory are Heresy models in my head.
Obviously, we can't do a show of hands here, but I'm pretty certain that all of us have built Cataphractory multiple times for Legion.
Oh yeah.
Because it's just so iconic for Heresy. It screams Heresy.
Yeah, I've got 60 of them because they're so gorgeous.
I mean, I've got 30 for my Iron Warriors. I've got, I think, 15 for my Blood Angels. I've got a number for my Sons of Horus, and I've got 10 or 20 for my World Eaters. And I've got more boxes, literally unbuilt, that just need to get put together.
I mean, I know, like, even though they may not be good, just because of how iconic they are, I generally try to build at least one squad of them with every Toys for Tots army that I put out, just because they're so iconic a unit, you know?
That's fair.
I mean, I'm not saying that you're going to use them, but I still like try stick them in there because they're cool, you know?
Yep. And they have the 4-up save, but they're slow. Like, yeah. Is there anything? But
so if you're taking Cataphractory Terminators over Vets, you're making a mistake. That's just kind of the point I'm at with these guys. I love them. They're beautiful.
Not a mistake. You're doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah. If you're doing it for the love of the game, more power to you, and I look forward to meeting you and having a game with you, having fun. But if you're doing it just for efficiency, no, they're beautiful. They're wonderful models.
I mean, for the same points, you could have a Contemptor Dreadnought.
Yeah.
So, just saying. Which of the two were you going to take?
Or a fully kitted spoiler squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ain't wrong with any of that.
Now, if they would bump up the weapon skill or ballistic skill and the leadership for that same point cost and make them vets, or just give them the veteran stat line, I think that would make them better. I think that would make them more capable.
Yeah.
And I think we'd see them on more tables. But I love them. I do. They're gorgeous models. But
it's like literally they almost basically just like almost took like Inducti and just say, here, get in this big suit. You know?
They took Bob, Line Trooper Bob, and go, hey, guess what? You're in this now. Merry Christmas, Bob.
Merry Christmas.
It really did. Bob got stuck in a Terminator suit.
Yeah. He's wondering the whole entire time, how did I'm the what?
He really is.
Anything left on there?
Yeah, I think it's a real shame. I think it's a real shame that the Cataphracti, who are so iconic, do not get played more because most people are staring at them going, I just don't see a reason to put them in.
Well, it's not just Cataphracti, it's also Tartarus.
Yeah.
Which leads us there.
Which
leads us to the next step.
The big difference for here is instead of 175 points, they're 150 points with 25 points per model. Everything else
is identical.
Is exact same.
Except
you move to a 5-up save, and you can run in sweeping events because you're in Tardos armor compared to Cataphractory armor.
And you also you get an extra inch of movement.
and you're no longer heavy.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed the heavy part. Thank you for that.
Yep, which means that in certain rights of war, you can be deployed on the table.
Which you also lose a lot of the survivability that comes with cataphracti
Yeah,
because
you
of that
do.
reroll.
Yeah, is that 25 points worth it?
Ooh.
Tough call.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Tartaros armor has its place, and it's a good place, especially when it's equipped on certain units that are not just a generic Legion Terminator Tartaros squad.
Yeah, but then you're going into all the
Specific Legion units, yeah,
Yeah.
you are.
because
Well,
Death
that-
Shroud is fantastic.
It used to be the choice for characters too over cataphracti because you wanted the maneuverability because
Right.
most characters are built to be beat sticks.
Yeah, and you would always buy them the Iron Halo to make
Give
up
them the
for
4+. Yeah.
Yep.
So, see here. Let me move this to over here. Can I move this to over here? Give me 1 second, guys, and then we'll move on to Indominus Terminators.
I think it also bears saying that obviously you can take Cataphracti Praetor, you can take a Tartaros Praetor,
Mhm.
and you cannot give them a better invulnerable save this edition. So, but you do get the extra wound with both of them over a regular Praetor, and you do get the reduced movement for the Cataphracti Praetor and the enhanced movement a bit with the Tartaros Praetor. But man,
Yep.
I think a way that would actually help these guys more than anything else is giving them line, giving them a veteran stat line, or, and this one's a kind of big one, giving them the ability to have an apothecary attached to them. If you could do that,
Yeah.
even if you could stick the apothecary in a generic Terminator armor, I think that would help them because you'd see them more often because they could be kind of a rock and just kind of sit there and take the blows and bounce it off because they're 2 up, 4 up, or 2 up, 5 up, 5 up, or what have you. I think that would make them a lot more predominantly seen. But as it is right now, I miss seeing them on the tabletop.
Yeah,
I think it would help. I don't think it would automatically secure their position though.
No, but I think it would make them more commonly seen.
So anything left on those?
Over to Indomitus.
And here's a big switch with them. They're troops, so they're not battling out in the elites. Which, with the release of the news book before we get too far in them, I think is probably a good thing for them. You're not fighting out for the
elite squad.
everything.
Yeah.
But they're a troop's choice without line.
True.
Damn near every right of war wants to talk to you about something, Duncan.
I know. I know.
So 175 points, move 6. Everything else has been the same that we've been talking about. Combi, Bolter, Power Fist, Indominus Terminator. They're heavy, relentless, that one word that I cannot say, exonerable. There we go. Bulky, support squad. They can only take a Proteus or a Dreadclaw drop pod. So even if you bump them up to 10, you cannot take a Spartan. They're 30 points a model, which is this insanity to me.
Now hold on. If they were 25 points a model, would that make it more palatable?
Since you're with a 5-up, yes.
They also are. There's a couple other differences. You don't have the access to the autocannon. You don't have the access to the plasma blaster.
Right.
But you get access to a Proteus assault cannon for 1 in 5.
Right.
15
Do you know the roll
points.
for that off the top of your head? Because I do not.
Yeah, it's strength. It's range 24.
Oh, there it is.
Strength 6, AP 4, rending 6, assault 3.
Yeah.
So it's not quite as good as other assault cannons we see.
Mm-hmm.
But you also can put it with a guy who has a Proteus Storm Shield for 10 points.
So you can put both on the same model?
No, you only put one on a model. You're changing the poker.
Yeah,
For
you would be doing a single swap. You can't have a guy with an assault cannon and a storm shield. As cool as that sounds.
And the Proteus pattern Storm Shield is a 4-up, not a 3-up like the
Fist shield.
Like the
shields or the salamanders or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but it's only 10 points.
Yeah.
Any model unit can add a Thunder Hammer on for 5 points. which is cheaper than the Catafactory at 15 points. Like,
Yep.
So you could, yeah. I'm not gonna go down that way first. Lightning Claws is 10 points. The Sergeant may exchange their Power Fist for a Mastercrafted Power Weapon for free. Unfortunately, the Sergeant can't get a Thunderhammer, so that's the bad part about it. And then you can take a Grenade Hardest for 5 points. Here is why I think that they have more play now than they did before this book. I think for starting off like 175 points, throwing some bobbins on there, I think they would be fine in that thing with the hallways.
ZM.
ZM.
Jesus, whew. I'm losing my mind. I think with the fact that you have 3 or 4 different troop choices you can take in zone now. You're taking that pressure off of your elites to put something else in there.
I remember when these were when these first came out, everyone was like, "Oh, this is going to break heresy. Everyone's going to take nothing but these." And I'm not a big fan of them, so I wasn't that kind of turned on by that. But I really have never seen them on the tabletop. Has anybody else seen anyone take them?
Yes, I've seen them one time, and it was Joe, our friend, our friend down in Tennessee, and he played them against me. He had 3 or 4 units of them and vets. And his vets all had grenade launchers, which is where I stole the idea from. I will be 100% honest with that. And they worked. They definitely stood there. They did shooting. They did hand-to-hand combat. He had power fists on everybody. They killed dudes they touched. And then I charged them with Reavers, and then the Indominus Terminators went away.
Yeah, 175 points for the squad. Oof.
Yeah. I think they have a place. And I think that place is Pride of the Legion for the right. And I think that place is Zone Metalis. And other than that, I have a hard time wanting to see them on the tabletop. Especially when their point cost is almost identical to Cataphracti.
When I think heresy, I do not think these guys.
No, I don't either.
I know that this mark of armor was around. It is not what I think.
It's like Mars pattern rhinos. I mean, like, yeah, technically they are around during heresy, but that's just,
So I know this is not going to sound like a shock to anybody. I've been playing heresy and building heresy armies for a long time, just like I know Jack has, just like I know all of us have.
Don't you accuse me of that filth.
That's fair. When I was building my pre-heresy Iron Warriors army before we actually had heresy rules, I know Jack will remember this. I was ordering bits from Max Mini and cutting up ballpoint pens to be able to bulk the legs out to build my Indominus into Cataphracti armor, my version of Cataphracti armor. And I was buying like extended pauldron shoulders. I was getting specific. I was using Terminator shoulder pads for kneecaps for their armor, and they looked okay. They look like an early attempt at Cataphracti. They don't look that great compared to real Cataphracti because they're big and clunky and ugly, but they worked. But now, yeah, I don't really want to see Indominus on the table all that much. Now, maybe if you were using the new Indominus Terminators, just because they're bigger, they're a larger size, yeah, I could see that being cool. Or if you were someone who is using the various different 3D printer people who have made the Saturn pattern Terminator armor,
the Saturn,
the Saturn 9, and you were counting that as the Indominus armor just for looks, man, I'd be fine with that. That would be a cool way of doing it. I would call it Rule of Cool, and I would actually give you extra kudos for that. But I'm kind of in the same boat I am with all the other Terminators and the vets. I want to like them. I want to use them.
Yeah. All right, let me propose a question. If you had to take one of these 4 squads, and you had to, which one would you take?
Vets
from John. John, and what about you, Jacob?
I'd have to double check Raven Guard rules and see, but it would be a toss up between vets and Tartaros.
Interesting. Okay. Which is sad because I think we all agreed that the one that we like the look of the most is the Cataphractic.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you cannot tell me that some of the most iconic models.
No, it
for
screams heresy.
I mean, it's that and the generic Legion Contemptor. They
Yeah.
both scream heresy.
Yeah.
Think about the Death and Hope trailer. That's the most memed GIF ever that came from that. Is those Cataphracti marching down the street as those shells explode in front of their face.
Yep.
And all the best specialized Terminator squads look the best in Cataphractor armor. Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Huskarls; they look brutal
Well,
in
like
Cataphracti.
the inner circle.
Yeah, like
I mean,
that being said, the Alpha Legion special unit is sexy as all get out.
Oh, the Lernans are a fantastic kit. They just might not be worth the resin they're made out of.
Yes, they are. If you use them as something other than Lernan.
Oh yeah. I think they're better conversion bait than anything. I think that they were not particularly shiny last edition, and I think they got done somehow even more dirty this edition.
Now, before we wrap this section up, I'll say something to our audience. If y'all want us to cover all of the Legion special Terminator squads, let us know. Like we'll do a special episode just covering those.
Death match.
All
Death
Terminators
match.
all the time.
Let's instead just go ahead and tiptoe out on a limb as like a preview of what that episode could be. What is your vote for MVP for core Terminator Squad and expanded Terminator Squad?
Terminator squad?
You mean out of just these three?
Oh no! I'm saying of
Like
the
Legion.
Legion specific Terminators. I'm saying of all the ones that are in the core books, like the actual, we have printed rules for them. What's your MVP? And then of your expanded units, what's your MVP?
Ew.
I probably have a top 3 right now.
Nope, you get one vote in each column. Otherwise, we'll be here all night.
Yeah,
think
that's
Expanded's
actually
pretty
fair.
easy. I think Expanded's pretty easy. I think the Fulmintaris are probably one of the better Terminator units, bar none, just because of the way their missiles not only work, but the way that they're actually really good. Even in ZM, they come onto their own because they can just shoot around corners. In normal games, I've seen a lot of APOC games that love to do the city walls thing, and so you never get that far seeing 20 or 30 of them camped out behind the city walls, just shelling everything that comes into view.
They're the dirty Tau smart missile system of 30K.
Since the Fulmintaris are such clear front runners, if we exclude them, does that, for most people,
It won't change my answer at all.
put the does it automatically put the Morlocks up to your MVP Terminator?
Nope.
No.
Not for me.
Okay.
Nope.
What's your MVP then from expanded if we say Fulmintaris aren't allowed to take the award?
So for me personally, I think the Dominator cohort is just phenomenal. Their stat line is great. They all come with weapon skill 5. They all have.
They are cheap.
They are 40 points for a guy with a stock Thunderhammer. They come with Feel No Pain 6, depending on when you have them period wise, pre Battle of Fall or after. I mean, they're Cataphracti, and that weapon skill 5 just makes them kind of beefy.
Jack, what's your vote after Fulmintaris?
It could be the fact that I'm staring at them right now, but the special Iron Imperial Fist Terminators.
The Huskarls? Yep.
Huskarls, there we go.
Battle Hardened 1 and Storm Shields is real tough to crack.
Yeah.
John, what would your runner-up be?
I haven't done a lot of outside the Fulmintaris, even looking at them, but there was a guy at the event this weekend would not stop praising Morlocks all day. I don't even think he was running them. He just would not shut up about them. So I'd probably go with them after everything I heard.
Yeah, double stacking their buffs makes it so that you have to be strength 11 to instant death them outside of close combat. There's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, Morlocks are nasty.
Jamie, what's your runner-up then for expanded Terminators?
I'm gonna guess I go with the Morlocks. The Deathwing Terminator retinue does some nasty stuff, but it's not. It's like basically it prevents your named HQs or HQs from getting singled out. So it's the same thing with but I'll go with the Morlocks.
I could see a case for both the Morlocks and the Huskarls. For my money, I genuinely might put it on Deliverers. They get Battle Hardened 1, they get Deep Strike Native, they get Raven Talons to a model. You can take one multi-melt up per 5. There's a lot going on there. So let's roll it then forward. Of core Terminators, what do you guys vote for?
Dude, I want to vote for Death Shroud, but 70 points a model.
70 points a model. Well, I mean, keep in mind they're like 50% more Terminator per Terminator because they're 3 wounds. That's how math works, right?
But they're toughness 4.
But they're battle hardened 1.
But they're toughness 4.
Yeah, Battle Hardened 1 helps, but I don't think it cinches the deal.
Yeah, not when you're. I mean, tough 4 battle hardened 1 is fine. Them being weapons ballistics 4, them being 5 up Enmoln. 5 up Enmoln really isn't too bad by the time you get the 3rd wound on there, and in most of the Rites of War where you're going to want to take them, the Reaping comes to mind, where you can take all the rad grenades so that their power sides suddenly cause instant death. They're not allowed to run if you take Reaping, and that kind of forces them into a transport, and even though they won't get instant death, you're taking Terminators that we're already kind of putting on blast for being expensive, and then you're saying they need to pay another 200-point taxi fare.
And it could be the fact that I have 10 of these kicking around too. I really like the Grave Wardens.
Grave Wardens are pretty cool.
I always have.
They're a cool sculpt too.
Yeah.
They're still cheap and they've got reasonable shooting. They didn't get a stat bump either, but they're not bad by any stretch.
And their base leadership 8, then with the sergeant leadership 9, so they shouldn't be going anywhere.
I'm gonna go with the Inner Circle just because they're Contemptor killers straight up.
So, I'd love to say that I think they're just there and they're top tier. No, they're not. They're good. Don't get me wrong, just are good, but they're not my favorite. I think my favorite Terminators out of the base book are still the same they've always been, and that's the Iron Tyrants.
Oh yeah, they're good.
Sorry, the Tyrant Siege Terminators.
Tyrant Siege Terminators. But then
just a squad of 10 of them throwing out 20 missiles a turn, the ability to sit there and then fire their combi bolters, all coming with a base power fist, throwing on the fact that they could all get an extra shot with the Tyrant. Yeah, it's not the best missile. That belongs to Fulmataris, as we all know. But still, 30 strength 8 AP3 shots is a lot to deal with. And if you sit there and crack them out with frag instead, I mean, that is
a lot of dead stuff.
Yeah. Either way you look at it, that you point them at something, and I used to literally, in last edition, I would say, point and delete, because that's what you did.
Yeah.
And they can still do the same thing in this edition, especially with how many 2-wound models there are out there that are just in power armor. These guys can sit there and make them go away really quick. And I love that about them. And 48 inches of range is wonderful.
Alex feels so strongly that he has more compelling ways to kill power armor now that he's almost to the point of cutting Tyrants.
I'm going to assume he's still playing lots and lots of vehicles, though. Am I correct?
He is. Turns out when you give a man some choom, lo and behold, the AP3 doesn't mean the same as going like, hold on, I can roll all these dice and then I can make you roll a lot of dice. Oh, I just might.
I have 30 Siege Tyrants. 20 of them are ones that I built myself, and 10 of them are the official model with the actual Siege Tyrant launcher rather than the Puppets War launcher that I used. But man, no matter how good all those vehicles are, and I know they're good, I've seen him play, and I've seen his lists. I just cannot find any Terminator that I would rather take pound for pound than Tyrants, unless it's in Zone, in which case I'm not taking Tyrants at all. Because
I was gonna say in Zone, wouldn't the Salamander ones with the crazy
Fire Drake.
fire drakes with the crazy flamethrowers, those would be pretty brutal.
I think if we look at just like what's in core/printed materials, I think there's definitely an argument that you could give it to the Inner Circle for Dark Angels. I think there's an argument where you could give it to Tyrants. I think there's an argument you could make for giving it to Grave Wardens or to Fire Drakes. I think that the Terminator equivalent actually has it this edition, and I'm going to say that's Gal Borback.
Ooh.
I think that there's only 2 units in the game right now that stop Gal Borback, and they are Huskarls because they get the Strength 10 Solarite Power Gauntlets, or it's Golden Kashig for White Scars because they do get the Strength 10 Lance on the charge. But even then, you're really having to hope that Strength 10 Lance that you successfully kill 2 to 4 Gal Vorback, and that they don't have a whole lot left over because the Gal Vorback will absolutely eat whatever survives of the Golden Kashig if they're allowed to make it to their attacks.
I will say, after having built a bunch of them very recently, I hate those models.
Completely fair.
They're not a fun build. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and when you're Ryan and you want to run 10 of them, to say nothing of like the people who wanted to run Last of the Serrated Sun, and you want you want each model to look at least vaguely unique.
Yep.
Yeah.
Trust me, I just went through that. That was a week of building myself, trying to figure out what to do to get them to look somewhat unique. Each one.
My only concern with them is 3-up and then a 5-up Feel No Pain.
If not for the fact that they have true tough 5 and 3 wounds, I would definitely be on board with it. And some of this is also knowing that they have Legion support around them in a way that seemingly no other Terminator unit has. The one exception to me would be Death Shrouds, where if you can get rad grenades into a Death Shroud unit, either from Typhon or something else, you start making that unit actually functional, and pretty terrifyingly so. Gal Vorback, the fact that you can give them line with Argoltal, or I think you can do, we talked about it on our Word Bearers, like Quick and Dirty show, where you could do some things even with Zardu Layak still, to really give these guys the juice. There's a lot of potential there. Not the least of which, like I said, I feel very strongly is built on the back of tough 5, 3 wounds, and no, you won't have an invulnerable save, but I think you come out so much cheaper. I shouldn't say so much cheaper. You're spending about the same on your Feel No Pain as what Terminators are spending on their 4-up, and I think you're genuinely more durable for it. Especially when you get movement 8 on the top of it, just to make those charges just that little bit easier. You've got Rage. I really feel strongly that Gal Vorback kind of outmuscle a lot of Terminator units.
They also have Fear, even though it's not in their base rules, because they are a corrupted unit.
Yep. So suddenly, if you're able to corrupt someone and tuck them in there, we talked about Argoltal. What if you take a chaplain and corrupt him and put him in there and give him, I don't know, a Nemesis bolter or a shotgun, and you force the enemy to go to ground, and then you run him over in close combat.
Yeah, and they also have that weird, they don't fall back, they take D3 wounds for leadership tests.
Yep.
That's...
Not ceding ground is incredible.
Are they base weapons 5?
They're base weapons 5. They're lead 9 base as well. They're strength 5 base. They're I5 base. And they still have frag grenades, so you can't like duck a pinky toe into cover and drop them down to I-1.
Man,
They're so good. Like that unit alone almost made me play Word Bearers. They're so
and
good.
all their weapons have murderous strike as well.
Uh-huh. Murderous Strike and Rending 6. So I don't care if you're a Dreadnought, I don't care if you're an enemy Terminator unit.
You can throw fists in as well if you need the extra insurance.
Yep, 1 per 5 gets Power Fist. Nobody's a character, so outside of obviously attaching Argoltal or Erebus, there's no character for you to be able to challenge out. It's just we're gonna throw down.
If it wasn't
Oh,
for
I'm
the fact
sorry.
that
They do have chosen warriors. They're not characters, but they are chosen warriors, which is
arguably better.
arguably better.
If it wasn't for the fact that they are word bearers, and I have an innate disgust for word bearers.
Hey, just for Erebus and Lorgar, Argoltal's still your bro.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I like Argoltal, but man alive.
Literally every other named person in that army, not so much.
Yeah. The only way I would ever build a word bearers army personally is if I could find someone who could do a top hat and twirl mustache for Erebus's head. And I would put that on there, and I would use him as the here. Please kill this model. Thank you.
See, I would put the top hat and the twirly mustache on Lorgar, and then I would have to find a way to turn Erebus into Muttley.
Yeah, with like the pilot's hat with the goggles.
Yep,
Yeah.
going full on wacky racers with it.
Yep.
But I think we've deviated a bit here. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate the spot that Terminators find themselves in. I kind of lamented when the edition launched that them pulling scoring off Terminators was basically going to make them unplayable compared to Dreadnoughts, and unfortunately, it sure seems like that's shaking out.
Yeah.
The Dreadnought's more durable. It brings better guns. You don't have to pay for a taxi for it. It's got weapon skill 5. Your Terminators don't get weapon skill 5. Alex has framed it as if you are a Space Marine, once you forget how to score, the next best thing you can do is not quite die.
Get shot and get put in a walking sarcophagus.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have parting remarks otherwise?
I think we all love Terminators. We all love vets. I just wish
They were in a better spot.
they were in a better spot.
I wish we got vet skills back. I wish you could pick your vet skill, and what's more is I wish they would have expanded that system out to the point where each legion had a vet skill that they could pick.
I mean, that would be super awesome, but I'd be okay if they even kind of did what they did in the Sithonia book, where you basically have like you pick offensive, defensive, or something else. Like there's like three choices.
I just feel like Inducti have shown us that there's enough bandwidth in the pipeline to be able to have done a system like that instead of what we did. That was something that like basically every Thousand Suns player was like, why are you making me spend 25 points on psychic powers on a unit that's kind of junk? That was last edition, but or I don't know, kind of gilding the lily in the case of vets. Why not just make that a vet skill option? Dark Angels, clearly with some of the way that like the hexagrammaton and stuff shook out, you could run those as vet skills. There was a lot of potential there, and I definitely feel like something is missing because that's not there. But I think very clearly, given how Alpha Legion changed, and a couple other things changed, there was a significant push from someone at the top to do away with a lot of the, at the start of the game, pick this, choose that. They really wanted to make the game, once your list is set, you should just be rolling dice from here out. Like, you should actually be experiencing the game. That's why Psychic Powers changed in part the way they did. There's no more rolling on random tables and talking mastery level, and all that nonsense. And that's okay, but it leaves some of us very clearly feeling there's some texture missing.
Yeah. Again, I think you could fix the Terminator just by giving the vet stat line as a whole. I think that would be almost a perfect fix for Terminators.
Yeah, keep the points, change the stats. Good to go.
Yep.
Bring back scoring, you cowards.
Well, that too. But
For the vets, I think the biggest fix would be adding a baseline. I think that would make them show up a lot more.
Or go the opposite direction and give us the ability to, dare I say, make our own chieftain squad. Give them the ability to take breacher shields. It's not perfect, but it at least gives you an option to start foregoing some offense for defensive potential on those models. And while I understand why that wasn't done, because it turns out that, like, adjusting durability on units is always a really hard math problem to solve. I think that in and of itself could have added a lot of texture to them. Now, admittedly, it would probably have gone so far as to, like, eclipse Terminators even further, but...
Even if you gave them the ability to have just combat shields, so they could have a 6+, I think that'd be fine. Or, I mean, if you gave them the ability to have breacher shields or combat shields, or just gave them back line, any one of those three would be wonderful. If you gave them the ability to pick a veteran squad specialty like we had back in last edition, I think that would be a perfect fix. Any one of those four, I'd be fine with.
So that's fascinating. I didn't remember, but yeah, Assault Squad's got to keep combat shields. I think, is short of an apothecary, that the only viable durability upgrade left in the game?
No. Tartarus Terminators can get the almost storm shield.
Tartaros?
Tartarus, they can get the whatever storm shield.
Ilias or
Imperial
whatever.
Fists can buy the storm shield. And then Salamanders buy the +1 invuln save shield.
And Indomitus can buy the whatever it's called storm shield.
Really? The weird one-off
Proteus,
kit?
Yeah.
Proteus pattern storm shield.
Yeah,
gives
the
them
4-up
four-
Storm Shield.
Yep.
At 10 points a model, I think, is what we were at.
Yep.
I was not here for that, so I did miss that. That's super weird. But I guess given that Indomitus Terminators still have worst of both worlds, do they gain line and lose support in Pride of the Legion? Did you guys look that up as part of that?
Yep,
I did
they
not.
gain line and lose support squad.
Yeah, okay. You know, if I was really committed to the bit of playing Pride of the Legion, yeah, I think you could put 2 vet squads on the table and like 1 unit of Indomitus and try to figure that out. It's unfortunate that you have to give up the gun for the Storm Shield, but it's still not the worst thing in the world because you can pick up Thunderhammers at 5 points a model, which is crazy cheap. You're not weapons 5, but you're still 2 attack space. So
Yeah, but if you took Cataphracti, they gain line in Pride.
Oh, Cataphracti, is it?
And they become troops.
Okay, but is it only your compulsory squads of it, or
Only your compulsory squads.
yeah?
Man, again,
Yeah.
there's so many different options for Terminators that we think could be optioned better, or just more flavorfully to bring them in line with Heresy 2.0. I think these are kind of a throwback. They exist, they're iconic, and they just don't fit as well as they used to.
You know, it's interesting. Is it also the case where I think Night Lords and Imperial Fists lost the ability to buy teleport transponders on their Terminators?
Yeah,
I don't know about Night Lords.
I don't.
there
Well,
were other things that could buy those too that have lost it.
I think Savitar still has his locator beacon.
Oh, characters still might, because that's like part of your character tax, so to speak,
Right.
is getting to break some rules. But given the salt level around here continues to rise over some of the problems with Naked Deep Strike this edition, that doesn't surprise me that ended up getting the boot. But, you know, would it have been too strong to give Weapon Skill 4 Terminators the ability to Deep Strike like that? I don't know.
So many different questions, so many different options,
Oh.
so many different things we all worry about.
Command Squad can buy boarding shields, so... Yeah, Command Squad really are just more different vets.
Yep.
Yep.
They can also get combat shields.
I think that in and of itself also highlights a space where Terminators and vets have kind of fallen to the wayside for me, as I feel like most of the time if I would have wanted to take one of those units, I'd rather just have moved them to a command squad, because the command squad's going to get the weapons ballistics kick. If it was a vet command squad, sure, you can't go the full 10 models, but and you can't take true guns, which is a little bit of a problem, but you do get the move to a base 2-up armor, or in the case of Terminators, you'll get both the weapons kick and you'll get the scoring back.
Yeah. Man, there's so many different things we could do. There's so many different things we could wish list. Maybe we'll be lucky, and in the next campaign book that GW puts out, we will see some love given to Terminators, and we can see more of them on the tabletop.
I think that's our best case scenario, is that we get a pass over veteran Terminator squads like in Ductai.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
But otherwise, yeah, until such time, I really think they're relegated to command squad duty.
Even if they made it just to 0-1, I think that would make all of us happy.
Well, until we end up at the point of seeing that in documentation, thank you, listeners, for joining us for the 51st episode. Once again, we do still have that giveaway going on. The code word for that is Beakies. Make sure you drop it in the comments on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or in the win a prize, or however we end up titling that in Discord. You can amass up to 4 entries, and it's only valid for folks in the continental United States. Otherwise, I've been Jacob, and on this episode I've been joined by
Duncan.
Jack.
Jamie.
And John.
and thank you so much for joining us. Remember, stay accountable to your hobby and your buddies, and we'll see you here next time.